Today we are going to change the lower control arms on a 2009 Range Rover Sport Supercharged. Some of the things that you're going to need, you're going to want to make sure that you have, of course, the lower control arms. You're going to want to get the replacement bolts and nuts that go on those control arms, because a lot of times they seize up and you're going to have to cut them off or heat them up and knock them out. You're also going to want to make sure that you have a good impact wrench, an impact chisel, a breaker bar, and of course you're going to have your jack and your stands. And then basically what we're going to do is we're going to show you now, a lot of times these screws that go through the back of the lower control arm, they're going to be seized up. So we're going to probably have to take a sawzall and we're going to have to saw those off to get those out of there. Hopefully that won't happen, but more than likely it will. Now, if you know anything about Range Rovers, these things are pretty much bulletproof, but the weight of the vehicle causes the bushings in the control arms to go bad fairly quickly, usually within about 60, 75, 80,000 miles. Mine has 90,000 miles on it, so it's due. The passenger side started first, and now the driver's side is doing a little bit. And basically what happens is when those bushings get worn, you're going to have a clunking sound coming from the front. It's going to affect performance. The steering will feel a little bit loose. So with that said, we're going to go ahead and first thing we're going to do is we're going to take the tire off, and we're going to go ahead and jack the car up and make sure the car is secure so that you don't kill yourself. If you don't know how to take off your tire, you shouldn't be doing this. All right, see you in a second. Okay, as you can see, we got the tire off. We got it up on jack stands. I use 2 jack stands just to be safe, and I threw the tire up under there as well. Kind of overkill, but I'd rather be safe than dead. Now I'm going to show you the bolts that we need to remove from the lower control arm area to get the lower control arm out. So you're going to want to take out this one, and the same way on the other side. And basically this is you're going to have a 15/16 on this end with a 7/8 wrench on here. And then when we're done doing that, we're going to take off this one right here. I don't know if you can see that. For the shock. Shock is attached to this one. Same thing, you're going to use the 15/16 bolt with a 7/8 wrench on the other side. And then finally, you're going to take this one right here off. I don't know if you can see that, but that's basically your ball joint. This is a little bit of a pain in the ass to get out. My suggestion is, if you're not keeping this control arm, take the bolt off and use the air chisel and just punch it up and out. If it gives you problems, you can hit it with a hammer extremely hard right here, and with enough wax it'll end up coming out. Okay? Alright. So I'm going to go ahead. One thing I forgot to mention is remember to make a line if you're going to use the same bolts on the sham and the frame right here, so that you know basically the way that it aligns. If you're replacing the bolts, you might want to spray a little bit of white or some color of spray paint on there, so you know exactly how these bolts go back on here. But we'll go ahead and start taking care of that, and we'll start you back up as soon as I'm done getting those off. Okay, as you can see, we took out all the bolts. Here's the end result. It's pretty worn out, so that's probably the reason why it's clunking around. Word of warning, when you go to take this out, it's going to be like this, and when you take these screws out, you can drop it down. You're going to have to drop it down and turn it at an angle in order to get this ball joint out. It's kind of a bitch. If you have problems with it unseating, like I did, give it some persuasion. You basically hit on the back of the nipple that it slips into. You won't break the nipple, don't worry. You just hit the shit out of it until it unseats, and you'll feel it when it unseats. It will clunk and it'll unseat, and that's how you pull it out. So this part was a bitch. I'm just going to say that right now. So make sure you have some persuasion, and that'll help. So now we're going to grab the new one, and we're going to, of course, put this in first, and then we'll stick the bolts in, and then put the shock back in, and then we'll tighten them down. But we'll only tighten them down once we lift this up from 15.5 inches from dead center to the bottom of this. So I'll put in all the bolts real quick for the new one, and then I'll come back and we'll tighten them up to specs. All right. Time for beer. All right, now we've got everything in place. We got the new arm in place. We got all the bolts on with the flanges marked, and they're in the a roundabout right area where we took them off at. What I've done now is I have jacked up the wheel to where it's 18.5 inches from the top of this to this. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to tighten these bad boys up to specs. Now this wheel, the wheel nut, that's 258 foot-pounds of torque, okay? And make sure you put it on there, and this is very important. And also there's a little notch right here. Make sure you notch that down with like something like this. That's a drive, just basically you put it right on the top and knock it down, and it'll go right in the groove. That way that stays put, that's not going to go anywhere. The two back bolts for the control arm are 208 foot-pounds of torque, and then your shock and the boot is 221 foot-pounds of torque. Okay, so again, just make sure that this is 18.5 from the center of this to the bottom of this. Go ahead and tighten all these bad boys up. Make sure the flanges are in the right area, and then go ahead and let it down and put the wheel back on, and you're ready to rock and roll. A couple quick thoughts. Make sure that you have a breaker bar when you do this job. You're going to have a breaker bar. The control arm on the driver's side towards the back is very difficult to get to. So you're going to need one of those little, I can't remember what they call them, but they look like this, so that you can, basically put the deal on here, put it in the nut, turn this a little bit, and stick your compressor and your air gun in there and undo it. So you have to have this to get to that driver's side rear bolt. Make sure that you put some of that grease, anti-seize grease, on all your bolts. That way you don't have to go through this again. I was fortunate enough that I didn't have to cut the control arm on the passenger side like so many others do. I just put a lot of penetrating oil on it. And then what I did is I just chisel hammered the shit out of it. It was tough, it didn't want to come out, but after about 2 or 3 times doing this and then going back and forth to the chisel, it finally broke free and came out, and it all came out in one piece. So we got lucky on that. Other than that, there's really not much to it. I will also say, once you're done, you're going to have to have an alignment. For example, right after I was done with the driver's side, I took it out on wheel drive, and all these airs started popping up. The anti-disc brakes were going off and all that kind of stuff. Basically, because what happened is the driver's side tire was tilted like this after I did it. So basically, if you want to know how to do an alignment yourself, I'll provide a link down below. that'll basically show you exactly how to do it. It's really simple. You just need some rulers, some string, and some brains, and you can do it. But other than that, that's pretty much it. It's not really that difficult. I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's probably about maybe a 5 or a 6. I mean, it's really not that bad, but it does take a little bit of time if you haven't done it before. So anyways, without further ado, get to work, and I'll see you later.